What's up, y'all? Tim DeGrasse here. I've owned the X100V for the last 3 years, and I originally came from the X100F, which was the fourth iteration in the X100 series. And I figured at the time that the X100F was the perfect camera, but as I got to start using it, I realized that the 23mm f2 lens was a little bit soft up close or at close focusing distances, and I also realized that the weather resistance that it lacked just made me feel uncomfortable in using it in different scenarios. But then Fuji released the X100V around March, February 2020, and they literally improved everything that I was concerned about with the X100F. In a sense that they gave it weather resistance, but they also gave it the updated 23mm f2 lens. Just a quick heads up, y'all, this video is not sponsored, and Fuji did let me have this camera for the nice price of $1,400 US, so you can be sure that everything in this video is full of integrity. These are my thoughts and my thoughts only. No one has reviewed this video or approved it before I'm releasing it to y'all. For me, the X100V is a perfect camera. And I don't say that lightly because I do own the X Pro 3 and I think that's a phenomenal camera. And I'll talk more about this in the X100V versus the X Pro 3 video. But long story short, I always felt like the X Pro 3 was used for work and the X100V was used for fun. All right, before we get into the video, if you're new to the channel, I'm a filmmaker and photographer based here in Atlanta, but I also love camera gear and tech, and I'm looking to make some videos on my YouTube channel about those things. So if that's something you're interested in too, then please drop a like and subscribe. The reason why I think the X100V is a perfect camera is because of the portability. And the size of the X100V just lets you pick it up and go. So the irony in that is that right when I got the camera in February 2020, or March 2020, the pandemic hit. So I literally was not able to take the camera anywhere, and instead I was taking pictures of those everyday fleeting moments like, events or birthdays at the house or, my son growing up. Now when travel restrictions were raised, I was able to take the camera to Colombia and enjoy myself, which I'll show some pictures later in this video, but I was able to take the camera to Colombia and not really think about, bringing my X Pro 3 or my XH1 with my X series lenses. I'm gonna just eliminate all that cognitive load, and I'm gonna have a great camera that I know can capture great images, and I'm just gonna go have the time of my life. And that's exactly what I did. So when you think about the X100V and how small it is and capable it is, you'll find that you're reaching for that camera more often than your other ones if you're comfortable shooting on just a 23mm f2 lens. But it's the looks of the X100V that really make you want to take it out. The camera is beautiful, it's retro styled, and it's modeled after those old rangefinder cameras from back in the day. Now personally, I know beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but you can't really argue about ergonomics. For example, all of the buttons are located on the right-hand side of the device, and you can access the shutter speed, the ISO, as well as different function keys that you custom map or set up for yourself. And they're easily accessible by either your thumb or your fingers. And things that you don't use so often, like the focus mode, the drive mode, as well as the auto exposure modes or auto exposure lock, those are gonna be centered a little bit on the left-hand side or in the center of the camera. Another thing that I really like about the ergonomics of the X100V is the ISO dial. All you have to do is pop it up and it stays in place, and you can change the ISO, and then you can drop it back down and let the camera lock at that moment. There are also some, slightly protruding grips on the camera. You have the rear one that, your thumb can naturally rest on, and then you have the back one that your fingers naturally rest on. With that being said, the grips are on the smaller side. So, I wouldn't go trying to hold my camera just by the grips without a wrist strap or a neck strap or anything of that nature, just so that you can really have a secure fit in your hand. But, at the expense of the grips being slightly small, you do get that increased portability. But an annoyance about the ergonomics of the X100V is that small flush Q button. It's just placed off to the side, and I want to stop short of calling it an afterthought, but I do think that Fuji could have moved it somewhere else, or maybe utilize some of the space in the center of the body on the backside where the LCD is and kind of put the Q button over there or in that area, just because I just feel like I'm never really going to see it if my hand is holding the X100V, and I have to reposition and readjust my whole hand just to press that button. And when I do press that button, it's so flush that it doesn't really give me a response, and it kind of loses the tactile nature of the entire device. And it just seems like I said, I'm gonna stop short. It wasn't an afterthought, but it's a little flush. It's annoying to me, but let's get over it because the image quality in this camera just makes it so easy to overlook any of those shortcomings, which, there's not really many when it comes to this camera. So enjoy these photos I've taken over the last 3 years that shows where the X100V truly shines, in those fleeting moments that you just definitely have to be prepared for. Alright, I hope you enjoyed those photos. So I guess a big question is, where does Fuji go from here? It kind of makes you wonder, like, do we have an X100V successor around the corner? And I would argue that we don't, just because this camera is flying off of shelves and people are completely happy with it, even 3 years later. But I haven't heard any rumblings or any rumors about an X100V successor. Usually on average, Fuji releases a new X100 series camera every three or so years, and that would mean that in this upcoming February or March, we would be getting a new X100V successor. I just don't see that happening. That's 2 months away, no rumors, I don't see it happening at all. And like I said, the X100V is still making people happy. Peace.